episode 159 of the Bench Time podcast with Todd and Brett Wiley from Wiley's Scale Modeling. So we're back from a 2-week break, a nice refresher, or kind of, if you guys heard about my dad, so we don't need to get into it, but if you're online, you know about it. Didn't really get to relax much, but we're back, and we have a special guest on tonight. We have Bernard Hellen from MiniPrints and MiniPrints.ca. So welcome, guys. My dad's here too, I think, still.
I am.
But welcome, Bernard.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're our first guest of the new year. And
we've been trying to get him since like early November, but we've had things going on, and he's had things going on. So
that's so his life.
Rock now. Yeah.
But
start the year off with a bang.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
this is it.
Let's get into a little bit about Bernard and how you got in. We know a little bit about you, and if our listeners don't know about your MiniPrints company, we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's kind of get your background into what you do with the hobby mainly, how you got into model railroading, and then kind of what led you to like where you're at now with MiniPrints, which is pretty cool.
Sure. So it all started about 54 years ago, and it's been crazy since then. No, I started. It's funny. I'm most of the guests that come on start talking about how they had a model railroad when they were 8, and got into the hobby with the first Lionel set, and I really wasn't like that. I kind of came to model railroading quite late in life. I only started really in the hobby about 7 years ago. So I did have, or more specifically, my dad did have, the train set when I was aged 8.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably lasted about maybe a month. Neither of us were really interested in it back then. I think, mid 70s or early 70s, everyone had to have that sort of, Tyco, train set that you got from the retail store.
Sure.
But, we never really sort of, I wasn't a modeler throughout, most of my life. I came to it quite late. One thing I was thinking about this, because I was trying to figure out how I did get into the hobby. And I do remember I built like a ton of plastic kits as a kid. So, like battleships and fighter jets and, those Revell plastic kits. And
sure.
I remember I built like a whole, like a World War I Red Baron balsa wood.
I remember
monstrosity. Covered with the thing called dope, that model sort of glue that would get you high as a kid. And, so I was always really like, I guess, crafty, like I liked building things as a kid, but model trains weren't really on my radar. And it's interesting because it kind of started, 7-ish years ago. And I had been running my own graphic design agency. So I'm a recovering graphic designer. And I'd been running my own graphic design agency for about 20 years at that point. And I just transitioned to a new job. And for the first time in 20 years, I was, working for a company, and it was a great job and it was really interesting, but it wasn't creative. So that sort of creative itch was missing, that sort of, well, I know you guys have that like need to be working on a project or building something, that creative feeling of like I made it, and, you kind of like hold it up and stick it on the fridge and, you go, wow, I made something cool. And I had that as a designer, but like the minute I stopped my design company and went to work for the man, that was missing. And it's funny because the company owned a paper mill. So I was like a sales rep for a paper company, and they owned a paper mill up in northern Quebec, and it was rail served. And I started watching the trains come into this thing, when I went to visit the mill. I'm like, hey, trains are really cool, and I kind of thought, I should probably try and model that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how my model railroad journey, came about. And it started, with the standard 4x8. And then, of course, that lasted 5 seconds, and then it exploded into the entire basement. So it's
funny how
not
that happens, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a funny story about that too, but yeah, it wasn't sort of that sort of, you hear a lot of people, or at least I hear a lot of people in interviews, talk about that sort of been in it my whole life, took a break at, university, came back to it. And it really, for me, it's funny because it really was less about trains and more about just building a little miniature world.
Yep.
And I guess I've kind of heard you guys talk about that too on your podcast a bit, about how the trains add scenery, like they're the revolving actors.
Yeah, it's like a moving scenery.
Moving scenery, yeah. So that's kind of how it started, and then of course you get addicted.
Are you a train guy or a scenery guy?
Totally a scenery guy. Totally a scenery guy. And it's funny because. And I'm kind of like a distracted by shiny objects guy. So you asked me 5 years ago, I was a bench work guy. And then, after that, I became a wiring guy. And then I got tired of all that stuff. And then I became a scenery guy. And then I thought, well, wait, these trains are cool. And I bought way too many locomotives. So then I became a train guy.
Right.
But then, I built a river and it was really cool. So, it's like squirrel, right? It's like, you guys have dogs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I have a beagle. He goes out in the yard to do his business and he sees a butterfly and that's it. And he's 8 years old. He's never learned.
Yeah.
He's exactly. Totally distracted. I'm kind of that way too. I think Brett is as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's how I am. I'm the beagle in the backyard chasing the butterfly, but for me, it's like down on the train set.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, locomotive. Yeah. Oh, I should weather that. And then it's like, ooh, scenery. But no, overall, I'm a scenery guy. Absolutely,
nice.
100%.
Sure. And I think that's a lot of the people that are on our show. A lot of the people we have now are really into the buildings, and that's kind of what we focus on a lot with our show. We're trying to try different avenues. You mentioned I'm doing a model tank right now, which is 1/35th scale, and it has nothing to do with model railroading. It's just it's that distraction for me, and but we love the scenery and we love the detail and everything else. Don't get me wrong, we don't hate trains. We're just we have trains on our layout. We run DCC. We got some nice engines and some rolling stock, and it all works. It's but to us, it's everything around it that makes that railroad come to life with it, and that's kind of what your product does. And we'll get into that shortly as soon as we get. Start talking about your product and the mini prints business, but those details. One of the things I often say, I don't want to take the show here or nothing, but one of the things I've often said is, yes, I can build a building, okay, and it will look awesome, okay, when it's getting built. We all do. We all, all the people that listen to the show, are all getting either at that level or getting to that level or learning, and they build it. And just like you said, we put it up on a shelf. We go, oh, look what I built. That's great. But that building is nothing until it has some people on it, or a dog in front of it, or a dog house in the yard, or, these little small details and parts and things that are what make it come to life. So if we take a photograph of our creation, we see the building, and it's just a blank building, okay? It may have some grass around it or whatever, which helps too, okay, the scenery. But until we start adding the life to our buildings and our scenery, it looks like a barren world. As soon as you start adding the people and the animals and the detailed parts, that's what starts to draw it all out. So it's companies like yours that bring life to our layouts.
And let's start digging into that a little bit. So it's companies like yours that allow us not only to how do I want to say it? Like, not only to add detail, but specifically yours, add detail that, I just flat out haven't seen anywhere else, which is really, really cool. I mean, you guys.
Well, it's super detailing, right?
Yeah,
I like
you have a skunk. I'm looking at
detailing.
Super detailing would be the word.
Yes.
Yeah. And the guys in the hobby who I really, really love and respect and admire, and the gods to me, post pictures on Facebook, and not every time, not everyone, not every time, but every now and then, you look at it and you go, no way that is a model. That's real.
Yeah.
And it's happening. I mean, more and more modelers are hitting that level where you really, really have to convince yourself, okay, I know this is a model. Like, my eyes think it's real. I'm sure it's real, but I know the guy's just posted a model picture. And that's what I love. Like, coding is like, it's not a art form.
Absolutely, it is. That is what it is. Model railroading is an art form. That's a great sentence. Yeah, what is all that banging around you're doing?
I just had God, this is just like the sign of the times. 10 seconds ago, I just had my audio drop from just your guys only in the left-hand side of my ear. Dude, I don't even get it.
I
kept hearing all this typing going on.
No, it was not typing. It's me banging around trying to pull every lever I have on my soundboard trying to get the sound back. All right, we're back.
I think they're pills for that.
Jeez.
You can take something for that.
All right, we're back.
We're back?
Yeah, I only missed 10 seconds there.
Hi, I'm Bernard Hellen, owner of a company called MiniPrints.
So how did you get your start in the hobby? No, I'm just kidding. Jeez.
Real quick here. Now, before we go any further, let's give them the link to that. So it's
MiniPrints.ca.
Okay, MiniPrints.ca.
Yes.
Okay.
And
that's it.
And you have imagination like no other with some of these small prints. Just cool stuff.
Yeah.
Things I would have never thought to have on my layout, but now I want them on my layout.
Now, what?
I know.
I'm looking it up one now. Bernard sent me some of his product.
I like the pheasants. Sorry.
He sent me some of the product, okay? And which is really cool. And they're themed. He gave me, I think, November's print of the month and December's print of the month. And just for example, it's neat because he has them themed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn my head away from the microphone. They're all made out of like a blue material. Blue, is it resin?
Yep, it's my own custom mix.
Oh, wow, cool.
It's his own custom mix resin. And it's really, really cool because it's not that super shiny looking resin you get. It's got texture to it. Now, I haven't tried to paint one yet, but I'm wondering if because of that, it gives it a little extra teeth to your paint, so your paint sticks. Or, I would still probably, we'll talk about that in a moment. But what's neat is they're very unique pieces. Like, so for November, we think about hunting season. Okay. And we think about Thanksgiving. Okay. And here there's two hunters, one in a kneeling position and one in a standing position with the rifles. Now, I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, and the one rifle has a scope. I mean, we're talking detail on these things. It has a scope. It's just a tiny little scope.
In HO scale, yeah.
And when you zoom in, because I put my vision, I have one of those goggle sets. It's really nice for magnifying thing. Vision Aid, it's called, and it's something new I bought, and it's really nice. But it has, I can zoom in, and the details on the faces, on the pockets of the jackets. It's really cool. I was checking it out the other night, Bernard. It's it's like extreme detail I haven't seen before.
Yeah, people with OCD probably should get into model railroading.
But like I was thinking about the scope, I'm like, how am I going to use that? Because we modeled in the 1930s and 40s,
Mm-hmm.
so they didn't have. I don't think they had a scope quite like that on hunting, right? Maybe they did. I don't know much about hunting. That's the problem.
When you get the snippers out.
Yeah, and I was thinking that same thing. I'll just cut the snipper off. We'll snip it off. But anyways, I thought that was kind of cool. Now there's going to be somebody for sure telling us that there were scopes on rifles back in 19 during the Civil War. Okay, so
actually, though,
down the rabbit hole.
Though, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But there were, Dad.
There were, I know.
Anyways, we don't need to go there.
We reversed on that, but yes.
I think we're going to do the next 15 to 20 minutes on how accurate the scope is for the 1930s, and I'm going to have to redo a 1930s version of them.
Our listeners will take care of that for us, no problem. Because they always throw some facts. We'll get emails and stuff going. Oh, that wasn't true. That wasn't like that. But
anyways,
please forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So and now we got. Here's another thing, Brett. We got in this packet just for the theme. We're going to continue on with this hunting theme. There's 2 pheasants and 2 dogs. One's a pointer with his leg lifted, and one is. It looks like a Springer Spaniel, maybe a hunting dog. Flush them out.
Okay.
Field Spaniel.
Okay, a Field Spaniel. Okay,
yeah,
but you can probably paint that up to be either any of those kinds of spaniels.
Sure.
Hunt. Sure.
Yep.
So detailed on the ears of the dogs, and especially the pointer's ears. I've seen people try and do dogs before. In fact, I have some in a box somewhere that I haven't painted yet, and they're metal and they're decent. You don't get me wrong. But these have this dog. You can look at it before it's painted. And I can instantly say that's a pointer, and it's a realistic pointer. It doesn't look like a cartoon, Some dogs that are printed have a cartoonish look in modern railroading, and these do not. It is, but so now you have the hunter, and you have the dogs and the pheasants, and then the last part of this portion is 2 turkeys. He said. So these are the turkeys as well that they would hunt, and they have these little itty bitty, and I guess you got to be very careful with these really itty bitty tiny little legs, but they're so detailed. So
you forgot the best. You forgot the best part of the. November.
I didn't get to that part yet. The best part in that box was a pair of pigs with wings. So when pigs fly, I'm guessing is where we go with that.
Love it.
So
that's where you're going.
Yep. And then you can apply that to hunters when they come back with their stories and their tales of their hunting escapades, and they say, "Well, that deer or that pheasant was this big." Oh yeah, when pigs fly, that kind of thing. Or I'll get one of those one of these years, and that kind of thing. But it's so cool. It's very, very. That's a very creative thing. These wings with the pigs with the wings on them, and it's something unique that you'll never see that from anywhere. So ingenious. So the detail.
What I sent you there, and I was trying to figure out. Like, I wanted to give you a flavor for the company and give you a sort of. And I'm really glad it arrived because. Cross-border shipping and the holidays. I was hoping you'd get it in time. But that's the Mini Prints of the Month Club. So I sent you the Mini Prints of the Month Club for November and for December.
Okay.
And that's kind of like, and I've got a bunch of Mini Prints of the Month Club subscribers. Those are kind of like the really fun, limited edition, creative, wild, and wacky stuff that I produce for this Mini Prints of the Month Club. And it's kind of like, what I promise is like every month you'll receive, it's all HO scale because I wanted to sort of just make it simple and standard. But every month it's a set of animal mini prints per month, a set of seasonal mini prints, and a set of mystery mini prints. And it allows me to kind of like be creative. It's that scratching that creative itch, right? It's like having fun. And some of those then become products. So some of those you'll find on the MiniPrints.ca website, and some of them are just kind of like unique and fun for the Mini Prints of the Month Club subscribers.
Like a one-off.
But it's kind of like that's kind of my, like, you can go on, and I've got, I don't know, probably like 100 different animals on the website now. But that's kind of like, the fun creative outlet. And it's also, that's where I do sort of my product development. So, you do it for the Mini Prints of the Month Club, and then, you go, oh, okay, I invested all this time and effort. Yeah, that should be a product, or that one didn't work, or whatever.
Right.
It kind of let you, I was just going to say, it let you experiment with the different prints you have in your brain that you're like, oh, I wonder if I could do this.
Totally. Because that's all about it. And I have to admit, so 2 funny stories about that. The pig was a request. So somebody said, and I'll get into that, but I'll take the compliment and thank you. I am crazy creative, and I am crazy, with the emphasis on crazy. But a lot of these things really, I got to be honest, a lot of these are requests. And the best things, like the flying pigs and everything like that, are, people saying, hey, you should do this. Like, I had a guy contact me last night. Like, the emails come in fast and furious. You know what you should do? You know what you should do? And I've had some really funny stories about things I have not done. So, we could talk about all the requests that I will not do.
They go right into the filing bin.
Yeah. Oh, I can't even imagine.
Right into the funny stories, some of which I can and some of which I cannot tell you. But the flying pig total request last night, request came in, and I love this. I love it. I'm working on it right now, actually. It's right on the computer. Guy said, you should do a foamer. Do you guys know what a foamer is?
The guy watching trains on the side of the track.
You got it.
Yeah.
He said, I want a foamer for my layout, a.k.a. Railfan. So I'm working on a guy with a camera right now, HO scale, standing there watching the trains go by. And a lot of these come from requests.
Oh, wow. You used to have another guy, another foamer. You had the guy with the camera, and then you had the guy next to him with his hands up in the air, like waving at the train or doing some kind of dance.
Totally. Doing the, like, pull your horn,
Yeah.
Horn symbol.
Oh, man, that's too funny.
Got to get a guy flying the drone, too, now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, true.
Oh, it's endless. So you mentioned the hunting hounds, and specifically the pointer. I'll tell you a funny story about that German short-haired pointer that you were talking about. And that's really an interesting sort of, I think, story about, this whole 3D printing thing and where the hobby is going, and where you find inspiration and all that. That is actually a scan that I did, believe it or not, of like a really old statue that I found in my parents' house. So it's probably like, 150, 200-year-old, one of these bronzes.
Yeah.
And I pulled out my Apple iPhone that has scanning capability. So if you've got one of the later generation iPhones, you have a scanner in your pocket, basically. And there's a great little program, tons of them actually, that you can get and you download right onto your iPhone. And I just 3D scanned this bronze statue that my parents had in their house. And I figure, copyright's not an issue. This thing's 200, 150 years old. And it was probably, I don't know, maybe about 18, 20 inches, long or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I scanned it with my Apple iPhone. And that's how that guy came into being. And all those realistic folds in the ears and everything you see there were in the bronze.
Wow. And it picked it up just off your phone, yeah.
Yeah, Honey, I Shrunk. No, it takes some software to sort of,
there's some finessing.
Manipulate the file and fix it. Oh, yeah, it's like 30 seconds of scanning followed by like 6 hours of cleaning up and, fixing it. That's where the recovering graphic designer, serves me well. But, but yeah, I mean, it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Dog. Like, we're all walking around with these like little mini HO scale shrink rays in our pocket.
That's amazing.
Well, one of the cool things, and I think you feature on it, And it's one of the really, really cool, unique things we talked about here before on the show a lot is over the last couple of years, I've been trying to get pelicans. And there's a couple not pelicans, not pelicans, damn it.
I have those if you want.
I know you do. I have some of this. Dave Cruzwick, as a gift, ordered some pelicans from you and had them sent to me along with some crabs, by the way.
Oh,
so I have some of your crabs.
Nice.
I haven't even painted them yet, but they're going to be perfect for our waterfront. And
great.
And I have some crab crates and things like that. So we're going to put them right on top of that and paint them up. But yeah, it's cool. Now, but one of the things that's really neat is you have birds, and you don't just have a couple birds. You have all kinds of birds. And birds are one of the things. We were talking about seagulls.
They either look really good or they look weird, real weird.
They either are done really. No, actually, I haven't even seen many that are real good. Okay, until now. Okay, but a lot of the ones I've seen are just pretty hideous looking. They're just like some things with wings. But now we're talking about. I'm looking at a peacock right now, and it's down to the feathers, the types of feathers. The shape, the size, everything is proportionate. And it's not just that bird. It's all these birds. The ravens, woodpeckers, roadrunners. There are seagulls. Oh, my God. These seagulls are awesome, Brett. I'm looking at them now.
I know. I have them up.
They're insane.
I mean, I have some seagulls right now on our layout, but they're not like this. Oh, my word. Yeah. And I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they're big sellers. People love the seagulls.
Well, and the eagle. Oh my word, the eagle. I'm an eagle person. I love the American bald eagle. I think it's one of the most beautiful creatures that God has created. I feel something when I see those, and you have it down to the detail on the wings and the feathers and the whole aspect of this majestic bird. It's like something you'll never be able to really purchase for your railroad, for your detailing and for your scenery, unless you go to MiniPrints and get this. This is something else. I'm not trying to blow up your head or nothing. Your details.
No. I keep it
sick,
going,
man.
I love it. Just no. I'll take it. More.
It's sick good. It is sick good, and that's what I love about this. But do you have a penchant for birds? Because you really do a lot of birds.
I do. I really do. Well, it's funny. I kind of do, and it's funny you mentioned the bald eagle because I just saw one over the holidays. We were up at my parents' socially distant. They weren't up there, just my family, my wife, my two boys, the dogs, and I. And I saw a bald eagle. We have them up here, and it flew right over, and I'm like, oh wow, that's I agree with you, stunning. And I do love birds, and it's funny. I was listening to Gordy Robinson. He's a guy out of the UK. Actually, he's running for the NMRA president.
Yes, I have.
Really great.
Yep.
Yeah, really great guy. He was talking, I forget what I heard. He was talking on a podcast or something, and I heard him the other day, and he was saying, the one thing that's missing from the layout that I see, every layout I see, are birds, and you see them everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Like these little details, these super details that are almost subconscious that you see in the real world that you take for granted that, are missing from our layouts and that you don't even know they're missing. And then you add them in, and it just adds this whole new dimension. This whole new bit of reality. Like I have a woodpecker in a tree, and it's hidden, and no one will ever see it. But I know it's there.
You know it's there.
And it's just like, and occasionally, you go, hey, you say to someone, can you find the woodpecker? And it's fun. Like it's just how those little things. They're in the real world, so they should be on our layout.
Yep, I want to do that too.
Yeah, I love the birds. And the funny thing is, it's like this whole thing just happened by mistake. So I want to tell you that there's some fantastic grand master plan, and that I did market research. But honestly, the whole thing started about like 5 years ago, I was looking for an HO scale beaver because I was building a little scene on my layout.
Yeah.
And I built the pond, right? And then I built the beaver lodge. And I thought, you know what? Well, okay, I'll just go online and, HO scale beaver. By the way, don't ever Google HO beaver. Don't do that. Don't do it. It's not good. You have some.
I can only imagine.
You have some explaining to do to the wife. So I'm typing in HO scale beaver, ho beaver, and nothing. I go to Prizer, no Prizer. I go to Woodland Scenics. I go to all the big companies, everybody out there that you think, that would make whatever. And I'm like, this is crazy. It's the symbol of CP rail. So if you go back and you look at CP, on the CP logo crest is the Canadian beaver. And freaking built this country, go back 500 years. The oldest company in North America is Hudson's Bay, which started with the beaver trade.
Right. Exactly.
It built the nation. It's you cannot. It's our national animal, right? It's our bald eagle is a beaver.
Right.
So I'm like, what the hell? Nobody is making HO scale beavers. I'm like, this is crazy. So I designed one up. And back then I sent it off to one of these 3D printing companies because, there were no home 3D printers, 5 years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were $18,000 or something. Right. And, I got them back and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I painted them up. And then the minute I showed someone, they're like, oh my God, where'd you get those? So of course I made 5 other sets for my friends. But, these companies, you send it out, 3 weeks later, you get it back. It costs a fortune. So all that changed about 9 months ago because 9 months ago, I'm like, oh yeah. I kind of saw you can actually pick up these sort of relatively inexpensive home-based, resin printers. So I'm like, okay, I should try printing that beaver out. And then it literally it all started from there. And it's yeah, I want most of the things that I added at the beginning, like the Canada geese were very early. The beavers, obviously, animals like the moose. These were things I wanted myself for my layout.
Yeah.
Right.
So it all started with that sort of oh yeah, I like birds. I want birds. Make a few for myself. Then it's okay. Then this whole mini prints thing got completely out of control and
kind of started out. It started out kind of as a necessity for yourself, and then you were able to convert it into something that other people can take advantage of.
Yeah, I started making things that I wanted, and then everyone started saying, "Hey, what about pelicans? What about osprey? What about ducks? Hey, have you thought of flamingos?" I'm like, "No, I actually haven't."
Right.
Would you like some?
Well, then you got into your land mammals. I love the hounds. Oh my gosh. The groundhogs are cool. Dave Cruzwick painted some raccoons, I think he got. And I guess Dave, or maybe
he's
know him as a customer.
Talented.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's crazy. He's one of those modelers that inspire me. He's one of those guys I talked about. They're people that you just look at their work and you're like, how? How? Yeah. Some customers, I love the feedback, right? Customers will buy them and then they'll send me pictures. And I've got a few up on my Facebook. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, MiniPrints 3D. Yeah. If you're looking for it. So it's, and if you go to the Facebook, facebook.com, I guess, /MiniPrints3, number 3, and then capital D, you'll see the pictures of what people do with these things. And it blows my mind. The paint jobs, someone is literally painting individual bands on the tail of the raccoon, or painting rainbow trout with every spot on the rainbow trout. Now these things are 3 millimeters, 5 millimeters.
Yeah.
What's that in inches? An eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch? No, less than
max. Yeah, it's
tiny.
And he's got unique. You got unique stuff too, we can't forget. We're talking about animals and birds and eagles or whatever, which is a bird. But we're talking. He's got Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. Yeah. He's got a Bigfoot. He's got a dog defecating, which is awesome. I think that is so cool.
All requests. Everybody's like, yeah. Like, can you do this? And I'm like, sure, why not?
I think my favorite now is the Nessie as blurry as it really is in the photo. No, I'm just kidding. You have like the blurry black and white photo of Nessie, but
yeah.
I think
he's a mystery. He's a mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you click it on the website, I think there's like a picture of the actual 3D print.
I should probably
get.
I was just joking. Well, yeah, but see, that's probably a more recognizable photo than like the print would be because everyone knows that picture.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the famous one, right?
Yeah, right. I think
he's got a muskox. There's a muskox. Who has a muskox? There's nowhere. Nowhere prints a muskox.
The answer on that guy, and he said, "Can you make a muskox?" I'm like, that sounds good. Like, the crazier the better, right? Like, send me your craziest, weirdest. Although I'm kind of now so backlogged that I'm actually trying to pick things that'll sell. But the guy said, I'm modeling Alaska. Are there even railroads in Alaska? But okay, sure, why not? He's like, I'm modeling Alaska. What about muskox? I'm like, cool, love it. Never seen that before. I'll do it, right? So I put the muskox together, and it takes forever. Like, it's like, I'll tell you a bit about the people I'm working on. It takes like 10 to 20 hours to kind of get one of these things out to the point where I'm happy with it. So I do the muskox, and I'm like, yeah, muskox, great. And like, I never heard from the guy again. So I don't think anyone.
Did he actually buy them? Did he buy some?
No.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
I saw a special on the muskox.
I lost his email. So if there's someone out there, please buy a bloody muskox.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an Alaskan mammal, a big thing, and they're pretty much known to Alaska, but it's pretty cool. I watched on the Disney Channel, Disney Plus last week, while I was quarantined, and I had nothing to do. I watched a whole series on the Alaskan white wolf and how they hunt the muskox in Alaska. And they bring down the muskox, and the muskox actually fight back. It's a really cool. It's really cool the different types of creatures that you have here.
My favorite's the African elephant, hands down.
Oh, yeah, that is crazy.
That's a cool print.
Nuts. Oh, yeah.
Now I want to do an African railroad now, so I can do that elephant.
He has wolves. Yeah, wolves.
It's funny. So it's really interesting you mention that, because one of the things that I sort of experienced, there are all these people doing amazing modeling. So the African elephant, and it's funny, I just printed up a bunch of wildebeests for this guy last night. So there's someone doing railways in Africa, and he's populating it with all of these amazing animals. So that was for him. You'll see that on the site is llamas, and you're like, okay, how in the world did you get llamas? I mean, there can't be a huge demand for llamas. Guy is modeling an Ecuadorian railroad. He's like, can you do llamas? And I'm like, sure. If I've done them, I might as well throw them up on the site. Never sold another llama than other to this one guy doing the Ecuadorian railroad. But it's amazing. I've had guys doing modeling in India. So there's been some Indian stuff, monkeys on the website, or for a guy who was doing a Buddhist scene for an Indian railroad. It's funny. I probably did orders to like 20 countries last year.
Wow.
And and there are people, I mean, we all think, okay, it's like, Wisconsin Central, Burlington Northern, Canadian Pacific. Yeah. There are people, even there are people all over the world modeling all sorts of railroads. There are even people in North America, like predominantly Canada and the U.S., modeling railroads in places where we wouldn't even think they're railroads.
So,
yeah.
So,
where did the plague doctor come from?
A request.
Okay.
Someone wanted a plague doctor, and I'm like, you know what? That is like that is the official mini print of 2020.
There you go.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
Yeah.
I cut you off, Brett. What were you going to say?
No, that's good. Keep going. I was just going to say, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. I was just going to say that it's just like these requests come in, and it's like really like when someone says, it's like that guy who said, can you do a foamer or rail fanner, or it's just kind of like it's that challenge, right?
Right.
That's kind of like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, why not? And then sort of the other half of my brain kicks in and says, well, if you're going to spend 20 hours making this, is anyone going to buy it? Which gets into the whole sort of model railroad manufacturer discussion. But for now, it's just that creative itch. It's that challenge, that sort of like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I think some of the more popular ones I'm just going to guess that you might go through a bunch with people is your crews, your railroad crew people. They seem like, I don't know,
that's the most popular by far.
I was going to say
absolutely.
They can, and what's nice is you can, you have they're doing things like they're guy hanging on the side of a car. You have a guy on the back of a caboose. I'm not sure what the other guy is holding something along the tracks. You have a guy turning a little signal. But you could manipulate. You could put them in doing multiple things. So it's not like you get that one person and that was the only guy you can have. You can have them positioned doing different things. They're just they're in poses you don't see with like a pricer figure, but they can be throughout. Many of them can be throughout your railroad.
Oh yeah.
And that's really where I want to take mini prints. Look, there are only so many animals. Like, I can start adding like meerkats, but I'm running out of possible marketable, animals that people actually want. Now, you'll probably get like some mail saying, I forgot something, and I'll take it, and probably add it. But it's funny because that's the part I'm really excited about, because I model modern day operations. So I'm a modeler. I do, as much as I love scenery, I did sort of, once I got into the whole modeling of trains, I did really get into operations, and I operate on a lot of friends' layouts, and I really have such an incredible respect for how hard railroading is. I've done like 8-hour operating sessions with guys who work with CN, and like one of the guys in my group is like a CN dispatcher. So these guys are hardcore. Like they work all day on the railroad. It's really intellectual, really hard work. And then they operate trains to relax, like for fun. Yeah. And it's like getting these things to where they need to go. It's hard. It's like the ultimate mental brain arithmetic logic puzzle. And I've such a tremendous respect for them. I want to get my railroad up to operation status. Now, it's hard to operate nowadays because we're all stuck in our basements. So the scenery is taking a bit of a front seat now.
Right.
But the eventual goal is, I have a realistic, I model Quebec Gatineau, which is one of the Genesee and Wyoming lines. So I model a specific prototype Quebec Gatineau Railroad from Montreal to Quebec City. So, I have a specific place, have a specific time. I'm not a rivet counter. I'm not like really precious about it, but right. It's kind of, I'm in the right time. And the one thing that was missing, once again, this goes back to like, what I want, are any sort of modern railroad figures. Like, you get European looking stuff. You get like a ton of guys that look like they just stepped out of a steam locomotive, from 1937. They've got the engineer's cap on, the suspenders.
Sure.
But I couldn't find like a single modern railroader. Like a guy hanging off the back of a car switching, or like I think the one you were referring to, Brett, was the guy with the belt pack, the remote control operator.
Yes. Yep.
Custom crew like number 3. So he's got like a remote belt pack, which are the guys that like remote control the locomotives in the switching yard.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So like I wanted like modern stuff, and it's funny, I threw a little internet poll up on, I think, the Canadian Railway Modeler group on Facebook, like, what era do you model? Mm-hmm. And you'd think absolutely. It's always transition, right? Maybe transition 50s, like it blew my socks off. I think there were probably about, I got at least 100, 200 responses. So it was pretty good sample size. And modern won 2-1.
Wow.
So there are a lot of modern railroaders out there, and I think there are more and more modern railroaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what excites me, is coming up with some of the stuff for them. The animals are kind of like fun, but where I really want to sort of take the company is into this the people and the modern.
And like you said, with the older eras, they've been done. If you want them, if you want that older era, you can get that from Prizer, on that figure. But you're hitting you're. I can already tell. I probably cut you off here, and I didn't mean to.
No, go for it.
But I can read in you that for you is uniqueness. So you want something that's totally unique, yet something that'll be sellable. So it's So what you tested out by asking the people that are in the groups, or the people that you associate with in model railroading, you put that questionnaire out to them, was a great idea, because you're getting their feedback, and then you're giving them what's needed. And because I ordered Prizer figures in the past, and I'm not trying to bash Prizer figures, I got plenty of them. Okay, unpainted.
Oh yeah, me too.
But and they're fine. In my opinion, they're well done. However, I bought those bulk packs of those three-quarters of them are like police officers and firemen from Europe that I don't. We don't wear it. They don't. They have that in the United States.
They have like the pointed cop hat with the point on the top of it. Yeah,
totally different.
They look like German soldiers. And then I have a German musical band. Where the hell am I going to put them in my
the guy, he's wearing lederhosen.
There's a statement, there's a prototype for everything, but you're going to have to invent one hell of a backstory for that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can justify, the GP9 has been brought out of service,
right.
Or the steam train, it's an excursion train, or, we develop all these like really elaborate backstories so that we can run that locomotive we really want on our modern layout.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've got a Bud RDC, because Rapido came out with them, and they're like bloody gorgeous, and I had to have one. I can't figure out any plausible.
It's just there.
Story, but,
guys, I just loved it, and it's there.
Yeah, you love it, and it's there, and then you go, well, actually, it's the tourist excursion train, right? Some company resurrected it and took the kids for a ride. So
there you go.
I don't know how you're going to justify the German Umpapa band, though.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what am I going to put that?
We could just have a
German beer house.
Like some towns, some towns have a Chinatown and an Italian village. We'll just have a German town.
We'll just have a section that has Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
One little section has an Oktoberfest festival corner somewhere. That's all I could think of. I had to do something with them. I can't. We can't just let them go to waste. But yeah. Now I will say, one of the things that we talked about recently on one of our shows, more recent shows, when it came to figures, was something I don't see enough of, and that is boat workers. Brett printed a 3D boat, and I painted it up, and I put some photos up, and I used Prizer figures on it, but I didn't use the Prizers that I've used them so many times. There's only 2 sets of boat or dock workers, or for a waterfront, or for that kind of, the sailor type, and the salty sea guys, and Prizer makes 2 sets, and there's like 5 in each box, and that's it. I mean, nobody else makes them, and there needs to be more. I can't buy them anymore, because if I keep putting them on, you have the same dude over and over and over again. You know?
Okay, so I'm pulling out the wish list. I'm adding it in. It's funny because you're the second. Damn. Okay, I know what I'm doing tonight. You're the second. Shiny object, squirrel. You're the second person, actually. Someone emailed me late last week, looking for that sort of classic, Northwestern, sort of East Coast Massachusetts fisherman, in the slicker, with the hat pushed up and, in the wet, I'm kind of thinking Perfect Storm, fishing boat type guy. And, and
there's another company.
At this point,
there's another company I won't name that makes some sea stuff like that, and they're small printed. They have some figures that are waterfront figures, and they're hideous. They look they're cartoonish, and they got a big face. I don't know. They don't look proportionate, and so I would never. It's ingenious how they posed them, but unfortunately they don't look realistic. They look goofy, or we go to all this trouble, and this is what's cool about your product. We go to all this trouble as milers to make it as realistic as we can. Okay, so you get it all realistic, and then you go to put a person on, and he's got a face it's like 6 miles long on his head, and he looks like the mask from the Scream movie, and it didn't have it just didn't. It just didn't look
molded
good.
out of clay.
Yeah. And you're like,
Some of them look like they were molded out of clay and then cast in resin, and the mold's probably like 50 years old and rough around the edges.
Right.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this 3D printing. The level of detail that you can get nowadays on 3D printing, like you said, every feather, on an eagle's wing. The resolution on this, the crabs, those crabs you talked about.
That's insane. Those are insane. You can barely see them.
I know.
Until you zoom in.
You're going to need your optivisor. You're going to need your magnification.
Yep.
I'm blown away with, the size. Have you seen the lobsters?
No, and I'm going to have to get some of them for me because
those
I
lobsters,
did a lobster boat, and I want to get some lobsters for our lobster boats. So
the lobsters, it's funny. These things, I think I have 10 lobster in a set, and I probably print out like 30 of them for every order because they're so small. The printer does a great job of printing them, but then you've got to, as you know, Brett, you got to free them from their little supports, right?
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
So, you can imagine, I spend hours and hours and hours. It's a very manual process. this is not like press print, and the package goes out the door. You spend hours and
manual
hours
intensive.
printing these little lobsters out, right? And, you print 30 so that hopefully you can get 10 good ones that then go out the door.
So
I can imagine that would happen.
So let's I have a couple questions, and I know we had discussed this prior, but just on the 3D printing side. So there's a couple things I know we talked about before that we won't be talking about, but from me, a novice, I would say, new to 3D printing. I have the Photon, the Anycubic Photon, which is like the cheap entry level one. But I'll tell you, I've been pretty impressed with what its abilities, what it's been able to do so far for me. And I have a fun question for you, and hopefully you can drum up a good one for us here.
Sure.
So I've had a couple big failures, and the one I don't know what the hell happened. It just was lumping up on itself. I guess I didn't put the right supports in, and it just kept I don't know if it fell a couple times, and it just created this lump in my tray. But do you have any? And it looked terrible. It looked like something out of I was printing a little dog figure for my one daughter, my youngest girl. And
it wasn't HO scale. It was a bigger dog.
Yeah, it's just she wanted a little dog. I printed it and painted it and made it look
toy.
Little toy. But
Sure.
The dog looked like it was coming out of a horror movie because half its face was like missing and melted, and not melted, but like malformed. What's a funny like learning story you had from that? Kind of like a big failure print that when you were done, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? What happened?
Oh yeah, I can tell you exactly. Oh, I got a great one. How to use up an entire bottle of resin in one print. So
Oh my God.
I had a pretty spectacular failure, and it's interesting because I thought the question was going somewhere else. I thought you were going to say like, how do you avoid failure? And
I don't think you can.
Brilliant answer. No, well, that's just it. I was going to come up with this whole sort of story about how, like, you expect 2 failed prints for every good one because it's just part of the process, right?
Right.
And it really is. It's funny. I'll go off on a tangent for a second and then answer your question.
Okay.
I have 3 model railroad friends who have all bought 3D printers, and one still has it, and 2 of them have gotten rid of it. One of them gave me their printer, and I have it downstairs. I'm up to 4 printers now. And another one just got rid of it, sold it, because you've got to expect that. Like it's a whole hobby unto itself, and you go down the rabbit hole, and it's messy, and it's smelly, and it's time consuming, and it's, you get a lot of ups and lows and failures and some successes. But the biggest failure I had was I watched a guy on YouTube, and YouTube's great. Like that's where I kind of learned most of this, trial and error in YouTube. Watch a lot of YouTube videos, and this one person was talking very technically about this workflow about, use program A to add the supports, and then use program B to slice it, and use program C to orient it. And so I did it step by step, and I hit print, and I walked back, I don't know, like an hour later, and I just had this like entire block of resin. Like the entire tray was filled with like a brick. Like I basically filled like, I don't know, like a 6-inch by 3-inch brick, like something out of like an obelisk, like these obelisks showing up everywhere. But it was like an entire solid brick of resin, like, like half a liter of resin. So like just this huge thing. And I'm like, what the hell? And I was like panicking, my machine's broken, And so I go on and I do some more internet research. It turns out this guy got it all wrong. Like there was a known flaw in the production. Like basically what he was advising us to do was exactly what you shouldn't do. And so my spectacular fail was using pretty much like half a bottle of resin to build this like giant plastic brick.
Oh my gosh. Hey, I haven't done that, but I've just failed on a couple where I didn't learn early the importance of making sure you have the right number, the right amount of supports. Yeah. And
that's the key. That's the key. It's all about the support.
Yeah. Yeah. I was doing, I actually started printing some tunnel portals, first of all, I was printing tunnel portals in N scale. One, to just test them out because that's the original scale they came in from the website I got them from, and B, I figured the N scale ones would make. I told my dad they would make cool like one-way cars, like vehicle-sized portals in the side of the hill we have. And they work perfect. So they're N scale for a locomotive, but for a car, like a little tiny car in HO, they're perfect size for a one-way tunnel. But anyways, I didn't do the supports right on the HO. The smaller N scale one must have been just enough for it to not fail. And then when I went to the larger opening for HO, it was ugly. It was hanging it cured. Like each row must have shifted. Each row must have shifted a little as it was going, like because it was hanging and drooping. I don't know. I'm sure the thinner the layer, it droops a little off the tray, and it was pretty ugly. But the supports, like you said, the supports is the key.
Totally. The most time-consuming part of this whole thing, well, it's all time-consuming, but the most time-consuming part of it is probably adding the supports. And I never use, like, there are programs where you click a button and it adds the supports. I always do it manually. Mm-hmm. And there are fantastic videos that you can watch, how to add the supports manually.
I have a 1 or 2 files that I'm using on my design software that I have pre-built, like, supports that I can scale up and add to a file, which is what I've been doing.
Oh, cool.
I have a kid I work with that is really good at 3D modeling, and he has been helping me with it. So he doesn't print; he just 3D. He does the 3D modeling part, though.
Oh wow!
So
well, I find too the other thing that I do is like I always like when I'm doing a print for the first time, I'll always print it in 2 or 3 different orientations because it's half the battle is the supports. I don't want to go too into the weeds, but half the battle is the supports, but the other half the battle is like, okay, do you do it vertically, horizontally, on a 45-degree angle?
Yeah.
You know, how do you orient the thing you're printing? And it's different for every model. Like it's infinite variety. So I just try 2 or 3 guesses and hope that one of them is the right combination.
And I've done that already. The same thing. And with a smaller print, you have the liberty of not worrying about wasting as much time because you can put all the different orientations on a tray, on a single print, like a single run.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very cool. I just wanted to hear if you had a funny failure story because I've had 1 or 2 now that I just
Oh, yeah. Well, my giant brick is the funniest.
That's a pretty good one. At the price of it per bottle, it makes you a little sick once you do it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's a learning moment.
So now I don't want you to give away, honestly. We talked about that before. Anything you don't want to, but I've been stuck using just mainly the Anycubic resin that comes with my printer, or that not came with it, but that it's the same manufacturer. Would you, especially for this, what I'm trying to work with, and I'm not obviously taking anything away from you because I don't have the design capabilities. I'm just downloading free files I find from other people and modifying them just a hair. But are there resins that are out of the box, not ones that like custom blends like you have, that would provide different effects for me or my dad if we were trying to do different stuff? So like, have you worked with clear ones before and stuff like that?
I haven't. Now, I have an Elegoo Mars, so I've got 3 Elegoo Mars printers and 1 Elegoo Saturn, which is like the really big version of the Elegoo Mars. And I just started using the Elegoo resins, and they have, all different kinds. They've got water soluble and classic and ABS like, and I just started reading, on the groups. There are lots of forums and lots of, like all hobbies, you can get sucked into the internet and 6 hours later. So I just started reading about, what people are doing. I've had really good success with the Elegoo resins.
Okay.
And I, mix different ones together. It's all about like, you want it to be strong, but not brittle. You want it to be, you sort of get that right mix of, like detail, strength, that type of, those are the factors you're playing with.
Yeah.
But there's like no reason that you can't, it's all about it. Like this whole thing on 3D printing is all about experimenting, and you can't break anything. So, it's probably a lot cheaper in the States than in Canada, but for me, it's like, I think a little half bottle, like 500 mils is like $25 Canadian.
It's pretty much the same.
You invest $25, and you try it. You're not going to break anything, and then I'm kind of curious about that. So I'll take a bottle of the X and a bottle of the Y, and I'll put a 50-50 in a tray, and I'll mix it up, and I'll put it in, and I'll print it, and I'll go, oh, wow, that didn't work. And then, you try something else. So, there's really, the only answer I can give you is just try it.
Yeah. See,
although I will say from a brand point of view, I've had very good success with the Elegoo.
Okay.
Brand. Well,
I'm not opposed to trying different ones and giving them a shot. I think the one thing I wanted to get clear for was I'm doing a lot of, I want to do a lot of street lamps. And it's great. The file is great, but I just realized when I printed one that it prints the lampshade with it. Not the lampshade, the glass globe with it.
The globe.
And I want to slice that. I want to slice that 3D file into 3 parts. So I have the hood, the pole, and then the globe. I want to print on a separate file with a clear print. And there's a clear resin from a couple of the companies. I just didn't know if you'd used one or not. So that's why I don't want to.
I haven't.
It didn't make sense to me, and I don't want to paint them white. I want them to kind of look like glass. I don't want to paint these globes white. So.
Damn you, Bernard, for sending me mini prints in this bubble wrap, and I've been.
And he's sitting here. I can hear him popping it.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay, well, hang on. I'll see your bubble wrap and raise it.
There you go.
There we go.
I'm surrounded by this stuff. When you're shipping little tiny plastic resin figures, you go through a lot of bubble wrap.
Oh yeah. You packaged them very, very well. I wanted to commend you on that. Some are they're wrapped in bubble wrap, and then inside is like a little paper envelope. It's like a tissue paper type envelope, and they're stuck in there. And then he put them in a plastic box for these kid of the mini print of the month ones. He has them in December or November.
Mm-hmm.
It was really well packaged, and now I can see how sending them like that, you probably have very, very successful luck with that. We don't get a lot of damage. So,
I hope so. No matter how much you package, it's kind of like there's an inverse proportion rule. Like the more you pack it, the more the post office is going to throw it.
Yeah.
It's like they can see inside the. It's like they can see inside the box, and they beat it up more.
It's like the bigger the box, like I could put like a 1-inch cubic square thing surrounded by bubble wrap in like a box 10 times the size. I could cover it with foam. I could package this thing so that there's no conceivable way that it will break. And someone will call me and say it's broken. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Now I do offer, because they're so small. I mean, one of the things, like, it's really important for me, like, I want you to have a great experience with them, right? Like, there's no point doing all this if it's going to be broken. So if they arrive broken, I'll replace them for free, and I'll pay the postage.
Oh, that's awesome.
But if you are painting them and you break one, I will still replace it for free. The only deal is you have to pay. You have to pay the postage. So, like, I don't want to be out of pocket on postage, but I recognize it, like it's a learning curve, right? You're going to grab it and you can go, oh, damn.
Yeah. Right.
So, I do offer the 100% satisfaction mini prints breakage guarantee. That is until people start to go crazy. But so far, a few people said, hey, honestly, like, I appreciate the honesty. They're like, I was painting it, I broke it. I'm like, no problem. You pay postage, I'll send you a new one.
Nice.
So,
nice.
All right, I have one more question for you regarding 3D printing, and this is not a methods thing or anything like that. Although I do want to say, there's a couple awesome. You were saying YouTube is a great resource, and I don't know how. I'm sure you've been on all these places, but I found a lot of help with people on Reddit. There's a couple Reddit forums with a lot of 3D printing people, and I've gotten some pretty cool resources from that.
There's also a Facebook group. There's a Facebook group called Facebook 3D Printing for Model Trains or something.
Yep. And there's
that's an inspiration group.
There's a couple, and there's a bunch of great work on there from a lot of guys and a lot of people helping each other on that group too. Just like a lot of our modeling groups, there's a lot of people helping each other 3D printing. I've seen a lot of people on there that'll have printing errors, and I'm like, oh, I kind of had that happen to me. And then I can read what their problem was and adjust based on the answers I got from other people helping that person. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I wanted to ask you, as this will just be my last main general 3D printing question, was,
sure.
What do you find? So I've been printing now for a month, and I've actually last night or the other night, Monday night, I got a bunch of other things here. A couple of the things that a kid that works for me, I had him help me design a couple things, and then a couple of the other things I just found throughout a couple. There's hundreds of sites with free STL files.
Sure.
But what I know, what my favorite thing is, it's like setting it up and that anticipation of coming downstairs into the basement and I know it's done. It was printed. If it's a big piece, it might be printing all night. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get downstairs and see what it looks like. What's that thing for you that really that's what you love about 3D printing?
Oh, you know what? There's so much, and it's I love hobbies, and I think that's one of the reasons why the model railroading is so interesting. You'll notice there's a metal detector, like a detectorist.
It is, yeah.
I metal detect as well. So, so I thought, oh, that's cool. You know, I'll just throw a little metal detector, you know, guy on the layout.
Yeah, that's
like,
pretty cool.
I really enjoy getting like whether I also have a drone and I fly drones. So I'm actually like a certified drone pilot. You have to get registered. Nice. So I did my registration. So I kind of like getting into that world of hobbies. So like, you know, whether it's the world of drones, which of course I use to fly and photograph trains. Metal detecting has absolutely nothing to do with trains whatsoever. But it's like, it's a world. It's a really interesting world. It's actually become a hobby for me. Mm-hmm. So I guess just really sort of discovering something new. One of the things that I feel very much about 3D printing, and it's funny, I had this exact feeling. So I got a Mac in 1985. I still have it. I have my original Mac sitting here in my studio. And I immediately sort of got into the whole desktop publishing thing back in, you know, the late 80s, and started working in 89, actually, doing magazine layouts on these, like, you know, really, like, there were no hard drives, there were no scanners. I mean, you know, you're talking the classic, you know, little Mac Cube thing that's probably in the museum right now of design. And I remember back then I was like the only kid on the block with a Mac computer, and it was so new and novel and exciting to be able to sort of like, you know, hit print and design a newsletter or something. Now it was all dot matrix printers, and you know, it was very crude. But I feel very much that way now. I feel like we've gone in sort of 30 years from, you know, being the only kid on the block with a Mac to now, you know, anybody can publish anything. You can go onto the internet, and there's sites like Canva and other sites like that where you can basically, you know, through computer AI, you know, design a very professional looking brochure. Anyone can do it, right? It's just everyone's a designer now.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was a sort of a new technology feel to it. And I sort of 30 years ago with the whole desktop publishing computer thing, I could see the potential. I feel very much the same way now with 3D printing. Like, I haven't had this feeling since the late 80s. And I feel that there's this 3D printing is fascinating because we're right on the cusp of having the Star Trek replicator, you know, in your house.
Right.
And it'll be really interesting. My kids I've got two boys, 13 and 16, turning 17. And, you know, it's interesting. I wonder what it's going to look like 30 years for them. You know, are they going to be buying toys for their kids, or are they just going to go print a button? You know, if they need a tool, are they going to go to the hardware store? Are they going to download it? I mean, the thing that amazes me, I built tools that I needed on my 3D printer that I would have gone out and purchased.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Like that's kind of amazing.
I'm not there yet. Cool. I'm not there yet. But
do your kids have any interest in the 3D printing at all? Have they taken an interest to it?
Yes, in as much as, Dad, can you print me? I don't know whether I can say the file name.
Okay.
there are certain files on the internet that are very popular, that are very funny.
Right.
So it's like, Dad, I saw this like dinosaur that looks like whatever. You know, can you print me one of those? So that they like, you know, they like me, like my younger one, my 13-year-old, he's really into animals. So you know, he's like, oh, like he'll see the elephant, for example. He's like, oh man, can I have an elephant?
That's pretty cool though. Hey, at least like, they enjoy it.
Yeah, and my older son has really gotten into like painting. So I printed out some really cool Japanese miniature samurais because he's into those you know, miniature games. Like he's a huge D&D kid. So you know, that whole world, the whole world of like desktop gaming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's huge right now.
Huge.
And there's another avenue that can be tapped into with 3D printing big time.
Oh, it's all 3D printing now. Like, I mean, it's insane. Like, so, you know, he does a lot of like, you know, Dad can have a Gorgon or a Dordon or, you know, whatever they are. So, you know, so I'll print some 3D things out, and he's shown a real talent for painting them. So I printed out some Japanese samurais, and he got into the paint and started painting them up. And
nice.
I'm like, whoa, like you are like, so they're really into the,
And he
that
can,
part of it.
yeah, he can be a little, artistic about it too. You're building the model for him, and he's painting, and you don't have to go to the hobby store and buy a $30 thing for him to paint now.
No, it's all like, and that's where I see that's why 3D printing. Well, because I wanted beavers, right? That's where it all started. But it's like, I do think
beavers.
This is going to be a huge industry. Exactly. It's going to be huge. Like 3D printing, like you see it in, I was looking at the Model Road group on Facebook, and people are designing and printing things that they want for their own layout that no one offers. You just can't buy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we're seeing such incredible work. And I mean, like they're engines that are coming out. Like people are coming up with one-off engines, that might have been a cement plant in, somewhere in 19 something.
Right.
There's like one of these engines in the entire world. No manufacturer would ever build it,
right?
But they want it for their layout, so they can do it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just fascinated by it, and you kind of get addicted. You go down the rabbit hole. I do have a top tip for you though.
Go for it.
And it's so I had a lot of print failures. Here's my Bernard's top tip of the day. I had a lot of print failures, and then I read about what temperature my print room was.
Mm-hmm.
So I put one of these little oil-filled space heaters in there, and I keep the room insanely hot. Like you got to walk in a t-shirt. So I probably, when I'm printing, I keep the room, I don't know, like maybe 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it makes a huge difference. Yeah. The warmer your resin, the better.
Okay.
So I've had really good success in just bumping that temp up. It's like walking into a greenhouse, So the hotter it is in there, the more liquid your resin is.
Okay.
And the happier it will be.
All right.
So there's Bernard's top 3D print of the
Bernard's tip. We should have done a drum roll for that.
I know.
So,
yeah.
Now,
well, you can add sound effects in post.
There you go.
All right, there we go.
You know what though, Brett?
Yeah.
With his tip. Good luck. Your basement's like the tundra.
Well, no, but I have been but the last couple of times I've been doing it,
You put the heater up.
I put the heater on in here and I get that room warm because I've heard that. I did hear, I mean, not necessarily because of what Bernard said, but mainly just because I'm down here working and I don't want to be freezing. But and I also keep my resin inside upstairs. I don't put it down in my basement because I did hear that you should not keep it. You should keep it cool in the jar if you can help it. So, well, not cool in a jar. Like if I'm keeping the resin in a warmer room, and that way when it is ready to use, it's not sitting in the basement like basement temperature. And then
freezing,
yeah. And I don't know if you've heard from other podcasts. We have a dental lab where I work that we 3D print crowns and teeth, dentures, with a different grade of more expensive grade of resin than I could ever afford. But the guy that's in that lab gave me a whole bunch of tips too, just kind of like that. Like, hey man, make sure you do this. Make sure you don't do this. So I've been learning from others that have failed before me, and I hope the more I tinker around with it, I'll be able to get on some of these forums and boards and do the same.
Yeah, careful though, because I haven't turned my train set on in 9 months. there is a cost to this.
Yeah. Now, I was gonna say. Now, fortunately, I'm only doing it as I need things for models. So I print and then I go paint them and I put them in my what I'm working on. Yeah, for now. But
it sneaks up on you.
Well, I got a couple questions.
Go for it.
No, you go ahead. No, you were going to finish your sentence there because it's going to be a whole new topic.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, I love 3D printing. It's fantastic, and it's so creatively, and it's really fun to start a business. And I had to because, when COVID hit, my sort of source of income dried up. So it was kind of like a necessity. It's kind of like I did like everyone else, I did the COVID pivot. It's like I was running a company that sort of helped small Main Street local businesses market.
Right.
And, they all closed and their marketing budgets went to zero. So I had to do the COVID pivot, which is how I became a model railroad manufacturer and went into this full time. But one of these days I really do have to go down to the layout, turn it on and run some trains.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we were told by another guest that does some 3D printing a while back. I don't know how long ago that was. Dave, I think his name was.
Yeah. Dave Yale.
And, Dave Yale. And Dave told us the same thing. He said, if you guys get a 3D printer and try it, he said, be careful because it'll suck all your time. It'll be a hobby all of its own. And
it's so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Well,
but it's fun.
I'm a technical weenie. I don't know much about any of that stuff. I had a hard enough time today just while you guys all had to wait for me because I couldn't get my Windows laptop to load up for me when it needed to with the sound, which I finally got it working. But for me, my love is the Brett does like he does to build the same as all of us, but now he's found this 3D printing. For me, my thing is the painting and the artistry of the game, and artistry of this hobby. And so I've got some questions for you on what you recommend for how you prep and paint these particular 3D printed pieces of art that you have. Is what they have, these animals.
Sure.
So
yeah, no problem.
Do we use a primer on them?
100%. So I'll give you the short answer and the long answer. The short answer is I did a whole clinic on my paint technique. So if you go to MiniPrints.ca, so MiniPrints.ca /clinic. So CLINIC. MiniPrints.ca/clinic. You will see a 1 hour presentation I did for the NMRAX Virtual Model Railroad Convention, which goes through like what I'm about to tell you. So it's like the most common question that I've been getting is like, okay, now what do I do with these things?
Mm-hmm.
And I've developed a sort of something that works for me. Your mileage may vary, as they say. So, there are lots of different techniques. This is, what I like to do, but I'm starting to investigate, there's some really talented people out there and, everybody has their own little workflow. So This is just, this is one man's technique. And I'll tell you what so the thing that's changed everything for me is I paint with acrylic. So that's the first thing. I just can't be bothered. I'm very lazy when it comes to painting. So oils for me are just too much of an investment in time. I don't have 3 weeks for it to dry. So I like it. So I like acrylics, number one. Everything always gets primed because that's what sort of that gives it the tooth you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a product made by Krylon. I think Rust-Oleum also has their own version of it, but it's a khaki camo.
Yes,
so
they
have these super flat camouflage paints. And the thing about the camo paints, it's not the color so much. Now, I like khaki myself because it's a neutral color, and I find whatever I throw on top of the khaki seems to work. So I'll use a flat white or a flat black, but my go-to is a flat khaki. And these camo paints are the most ultra flat paint I've ever seen. And
they truly are.
It's just a rattle can. It's cheap. So, you don't need to go and buy the $18 half cans of Tamiya or whatever. I mean, it's great if you can afford it. And I love that stuff. But just a good old camo, ultra flat khaki rattle can.
Yep.
Super light passes. Now, Bernard's top tip for spray painting. I need more music for this one. It's funny. It's the exact same top tip as the 3D printing. I always submerge my rattle can in super hot water for 15 minutes.
I've heard people doing that. I've not tried it, but
it turns a rattle can into an airbrush.
Oh my!
like by just heating it, I also shake it more than, you're supposed to, but the combination of heating it and like I'm talking about like just, the hottest tap water you can get, throw it in there, walk away 5, 10, 15 minutes, just forget about it, come back. When the whole can, like when the top of the can that's not immersed in the water feels warm, then just start shaking like crazy. And that silly little step I guess it just, makes it come out that much finer.
Nice.
Super light passes, like less is more. And that's what I do. That's all
great.
there is to the priming.
That's a really great tip.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the music you find for this.
I will.
I'm not a musician, but hey,
I will edit it. I will edit it in for sure.
But I have a can of the Krylon camouflage. I love the Krylon, and we've talked. We're gonna sit here and say it one more time. We badmouthed already enough. Rust-Oleum. We've had bad luck with Rust-Oleum. A lot of our listeners have had bad luck with Rust-Oleum because the nozzles clog.
Yeah,
they're awful. I don't know what it is. And Rust-Oleum's been a problem for me, so I got rid of it.
Yeah.
And I've been buying the Krylon, and I just noticed that the Krylon camouflage is out. I think Rust-Oleum had it first. Now Krylon's making it, and I couldn't be happier. Now, and that was even an issue we had. I'm sorry.
No, everything gets a very thin coat of that.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't need much. I mean, and you're right. It is super flat. It's really nice, and like I said, it has some teeth to it. It allows your acrylics and things to pick up on it, and it accepts it real well. We talked to one of the people that we were talking about with the Rust-Oleum was when we were up visiting George Celios at his Franklin, South Manchester. We were in his shop where we had the rare treat of going back into his shop, and we were asking him about this rattle cans. And I said, "Hey, George, you ever have an issue with the Rust-Oleum cans clogging up?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." So even the masters of the hobby have the issues, So it's
totally
pretty. And it's I hear complaint after complaint about it. Now I don't want to keep bashing on them, but the camouflage is great because especially if you have if you're using like wood crates and things like that, your battle's half over with the color coding, because it's
for sure.
Yeah.
So. And on that clinic, I think it's on that clinic, I did a comparison. I think I did the Eagle, and I did one with a flat black, one with a flat khaki, and one with a flat white. And then I put the paint over all three of them to see which effect I like better. And the khaki, from my eyes, won. Yeah. So that's it. It's all about experimenting. I just try things out.
Now you said you use acrylics. I mean, what kind of an acrylic paint do you use?
Okay, so I was using craft store acrylic, and I'll be honest, I'm not a fan. And I think I've heard you guys talk about it. And I've moved.
We have variations.
Okay, I've moved away from the craft store acrylics because I found something that worked really well for me, and I like and they're basically craft store acrylics, but better. And what I mean by that is I've gone to paints that are a little bit thinner, so they're high flow acrylics. So they're typically the types of paints that you would use in an airbrush. So I guess they've just been thinned a little bit. So Vallejo makes some, and I think there's some golden, and they come in like little sort of nipple bottles, sort of, little, I don't know how many ounces these are. Right. But you see them, they got like little white tops.
Sure, yeah, I have some.
And they're like little squeeze bottles.
AK makes them, and AK and Mick Ammo, they make that kind of stuff. Yep.
You got it. Right. So those they look like contact lens solution eyedropper bottles. And I've recently found a set. I knew that I was going to go down the painting rabbit hole because it's fun. So some of these things start to get expensive. So you also never know what sort of colors you're going to want. So I found a company called the Army Painter, and they have a line of paints called War Paints. Oh. And I really like these. I bit the bullet, and I got I went on to, the company that that seems to deliver things to everybody's door every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on to my Amazon.ca and I looked them up, and I think they offered, I forget what it cost, but they offered one of these, things that's like 50 paints for $100 or something like that. Like I bought the big set. And boy, am I ever glad that I did. Now, they all have incredibly funny names. Like I'm looking right now, like it's not forest green, it's goblin green. And it's and my go-to skin color is now barbarian flesh. And I've
That's
used
cool,
a
though.
lot of there's a lot of ogre snot, believe it or not. The names are awesome, right? So they're all of these wargamer. They're really meant for the market we were talking about, like the Dungeons and Dragons and wargamers. So they have like my go-to red is called Dragon Red. So they all have wonderful names. And the beauty of these things is they're going to last me 3 lifetimes because I'm painting with a drop, like literally a droplet.
Yep.
I found that you don't need much, barbarian flesh or ogre snot. You need a tiny drop's worth. So this Army Painter War Paint set, it's incredible because it just comes with, more colors than you'd ever think you need. And, who knew that I'd be painting, pheasants or peacocks.
Right.
And, the colors have come in quite handy.
Yeah.
So
I
really, So the other thing too is it's really the brush. I mean, it's less about the paint and more about the brush.
I was going to go there next, but I'm glad you started.
If I am using, doesn't really matter, what paint, whether it's cheap paint or gritty paint. What I find I end up doing is I end up really watering it down, and I almost don't paint with paint. I paint with water that has a little bit of paint in it.
Mm-hmm.
So most of what I'm doing are like thin washes and just building up layers of washes.
Right.
And using, of course, a very, 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 000, very, very fine brush.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm a big proponent to that. We talked about that on the show many times, is I don't mind, especially for my fine detail things. I will go to the store, to an art supply place, and I will pay a higher end dollar on a brush that is going to even if it's a little tiny 000 or 00 brush. Yeah. I will pay the higher price because I know that brush is going to hold up for me and stay in good shape. I also clean them out very well and use a brush cleaner and all that. But Brett can tell you how anal I am about my brushes. Yeah. So,
good
but
man. I wish I was.
Don't get me wrong. I got a whole bucket full of these ones that they used to be nice, but they're no longer nice.
How does that happen? It's like you buy a super expensive brush and you're like 100% diligent about cleaning it. And then you look down and you're like, oh, for God's sakes, man. You're like,
and then
how
there's
in the world did I forget to...
And then there's the other brush that you paid $1 for or $2 for, and you got 6 of them in a pack. And it looks like it did the day you bought it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I know. Life is cruel.
It's like a pair of good sunglasses. You're going to lose the good sunglasses, and the ones that you bought at the gas station are going to last you for 10 years. It's the same philosophy.
Yeah, and then you got a box filled with them. Yeah. Now, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of something called a wet palette?
Yes. I have a wet palette. I have every palette known to man. I am a palette collector. It's like a fetish for me. Yes.
Well, I share the same affliction because I started watching, like when I started getting into painting, I realized that model railroad channels don't have a lot to offer when it comes to technique. So I started watching all the YouTube videos of these war gamers.
Yep.
And oh my God, they're light years ahead of us in the hobby. Yes. Some of these military modelers and war painters and war gamers, it's like insane. And there's one guy, I forget his name, Squidmar or something. I'll have to look it up. but there's one guy who's like probably from Denmark or Sweden or something. And
those guys are great. They get the best accents too.
Oh my God. And they're so incredibly talented. And they do things, which is probably why I'm using like ogre snot and barbarian flesh and, other things like that. But they do things that I'd never even thought of. Mm-hmm. And that's really where I learned about a wet palette. I made myself like a $1, $2 wet palette with like a piece of Tupperware and a sponge. And it's not fancy. It's like a homemade one that I made myself. I actually think I might want to go and invest in a good one. But just painting with that wet palette is probably the thing that really changed the way I approached painting.
Right. So, they are so much easier to work with. They keep your paints fresh, 100%. And I can close it all up and come back to it, and I don't have to pour out more paint and clean out other little palettes and all that. It's all ready to rock, So especially if you're painting figures, let's say you're painting people figures, and you have 20, 30 of them with a wet palette. I can get a lot of them done that way,
Totally. And if anyone doesn't have a wet palette, you can make one for a couple bucks.
Yep.
And you don't have to buy one, and just Google it or watch a YouTube video how to make a wet palette. It's going to completely change the effects you get on painting.
Oh yeah. Now, one of the things I'm going to share with everybody, I was told everybody about the Easy 8 tank that I've been building. It's just something that's a distraction for me to try and model something bigger. I talked to several people. Jason Jensen has been modeling some bigger things. Kathy Millett has been modeling some bigger things. Doug Fiscali, him and I had this conversation already, in fact, about painting the tanks. And we talked about painting stuff in a bigger scale and then coming back to the smaller scale and picking up and learning, hey, I just went from bigger to smaller, where you're forced to have to paint something larger and show more detail. Now I'm going to take the skills and draw them down into something small and see how that goes. It'll change how you paint. So I'm learning with this tank I'm building, and I'm probably never going to build another one of these. I did order the Foss scale models, 35s, 1/35th diorama scene to go with it. It's a theater. A German theater in a cobblestone street. It's all done in hydrocal. I'm waiting for that to arrive, and then that's where this tank's going to go. But this is the first time I've done this since I was a kid, like a tank or a plane or a car, like you were saying earlier. I started using these paints by Tamiya that they recommended. It's a Tamiya model. And I bought these little jars of all the different colors that it recommended for the tank. And it's the first time I've used these. They're acrylics, and they are wonderful. I'm thinking about stopping. I might not be buying much craft acrylics, and I might start buying this Tamiya stuff because it goes on, and it doesn't. You need one coat. That's it. It's not thick. It just it covers well. It's
the
really
pigment.
nice.
It's evenly dispersed. Like the thing about, look, I've believe it or not, put like diluted craft store acrylic into an airbrush and got it to work. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to suffer. And, they do make, model color, the Vallejo model color line is really good.
Right.
The golden fluid acrylics, the Tamiya, there's a lot of great paint out there. Yeah. So, and the thing is, it's expensive because you're paying like $3 a bottle instead of $1 a bottle. But what I realized is the bottle is going to last me forever.
Yeah. That's just it.
Yeah.
I'm only using a tiny itty bit, and I'm painting a much larger scale tank, and I'm hardly using any. It's amazing.
Totally.
I'm really impressed with it, and so as I'm taking this back, I'm thinking about maybe using some of these Tamiya colors on some of these mini prints just to try them and see. I might have to thin them out a little bit, but
and when you do, and the key here is post the pictures and tag me, because I love seeing what everyone does, and the paint jobs. I'm dying to see. It's like people interpret the models. And people have asked me, will you paint them? And I'm like, no way. Like, that's the fun part. Like, all the mini prints come unpainted.
Right.
And what I want to do with mini prints is, it's like, I know you guys talk a lot about craftsman quality. Like, you guys do. I have a horrible admission to make. I've actually never built a craftsman kit in my life. It's one of my New Year's resolutions / goals for this year.
Okay.
To pick up a craftsman kit and build it.
You got to start somewhere.
But I want to be like the craftsman quality of 3D print.
Right.
And I want it to be like, I don't want it to be like you buy it and it's painted and it's done and you put it on the layout. Like, I want to provide the raw material for your creativity and your imagination. Like, my tagline is make your model railroad come alive. And that's kind of a little bit of a play on the whole animal thing. But part of it is it's not meant to be like a ready-made place on the layout. It's meant to, it's a craftsman quality print for people who want to get their hands dirty, who want to be artistic, who want to get into it.
Yeah.
That's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
You wouldn't go.
Every manufacturer. Sorry, Brent.
I was going to say, you wouldn't go to any other manufacturer and say, hey, I want to buy your kit, but I want it to come pre-assembled and done.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd all laugh at you.
And every one of our manufacturers we've had on, like we've had Jeff Grove on, and we've talked to him about this from Carolina Craftsman Kits, or Doug Fiscali, or any of these guys that make kits. Casey's Workshop with Kenny Crump. We've had all these guys on, and they've all said the same thing that you're saying right now. And I think that's part of one of the loves of what they do, is that they like to see what their customers who buy them can do with them. And they all want to see it. The guy who has the boats, Bruce Nickerson, up at Seaport Model Works, same deal. He loves getting the photos or seeing the photos of people's finished work. And if they change it up and do something truly unique with it, that even makes these guys, they love that even more. If you don't build Doug's kit the way he has it designed, he loves that fact that somebody like Jason Jensen took it and turned it into the superstructure by kit bashing it with somebody else's kit. And they love that stuff,
Totally. Well, you guys did your Halloween build, right?
Right. Yep.
You did the 4. Well, I think 2 of the 4 submissions used mini prints.
Yeah.
And that was like, for me, that was like my happy moment. Like, when I saw that and I saw like what people done and the creativity and the expression and, just how wonderful it was. Like, that's a kick. That's really, that's,
yeah.
Like, you don't get better than that. It's like,
that's a compliment to you.
Cool.
Yep.
Well,
that's a huge compliment to you and your product. That's got to make you feel good to see that from some other modelers. And those Halloween models, by the way, they were off the charts. Insane.
They were insane.
Well, and we even died in one of them because one was a cemetery with our initials on it.
Yeah. But it's, that's so cool. Now,
that's the comedy of it.
Now,
yeah, exactly.
A lot of people, when they print figures, they often talk about how they like to put like pigment, chalk pigments on them and stuff when they're done. I am not one of those people. I painted many figures, and you could see some of them. The most recent one was on that boat I was telling you about. And I don't do that. I think it depends on your painting style. If you can use your paints and make them look a little more dulled down without having to use the pigments, I like that better. So I know some people like to use the pigments. It brings out more detail, they say. I have not been a proponent to that. I know a lot of people that do. Do you, is that one of the techniques in your painting that you use chalk pigments?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I did it on the donkey because I painted the donkey and I'm like, something's missing. And I dusted the donkey. I do use quite a lot of the, what is it? Hang on. Pan pastel. I do like the pan pastel. Mm-hmm. And I do that more for structures and, I've used it on rolling stock wheels and things like that. So I do quite like the pan pastels. I dusted the donkey because the donkey didn't look right. And the minute I kind of put a little bit of sort of gray, brown, dusty pan pastel on the donkey, it looked like a donkey. So I guess maybe donkeys just roll around in the dirt. I also
they
used
do.
it on the African. Yeah. So that was like, okay, prototypical. I guess my donkey was too clean.
And I shouldn't knock that technique, because there are things I had dusted, okay, because they have to be done that way. Not
like
everything. I need
elephant.
to rephrase that. So not everything that I do is like that, but yeah.
The African elephant, like elephants are dirty, so you got to dust the African elephant. Overall, I haven't done it very much. It's funny. I did it on the elephant and I did it on the donkey. And then you start going, I wonder what else I can do it on. So you throw it on something else like a mountain goat. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, when and where appropriate. I'll tell you what I am starting to experiment with, though, and it's in the same vein. It's the same but different. So these Army Painter quick shade, the Army Painter paints came with things called quick shades, soft tone and hard tone, and they're washes. And I think that I haven't gone too deep into it. I probably should read the instructions that came with it, but I think they're not acrylics. I don't think they are. There's some sort of maybe, I don't know. They're just different. There's some sort of toning wash. And I've started to basically I'll do all my painting and then you just dunk your figure in these washes, dark tone or light tone.
Are they enamel?
Man, they must be. I should probably Google it and figure it out. But it's probably some sort of enamel wash or something.
Right.
Let's see. Shake lightly. I can't see what it is. But it's amazing. It's like there's some sort of little magic in these bottles because these washes really do bring out, the nooks and crannies. And the funny thing is, it's like you were saying, you look at these things under the microscope, and if you just flat prime them, you're not really getting the detail. But the minute you do sort of dust them or dip them, you start to see the faces pop out. And there's a lot more detail in the 3D print that you can pull out either with washes or, tones or dusting.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I'm all in favor of it. I haven't experimented that much with it. I think it's a really interesting avenue, and I'd encourage people to try it and send me pictures because I'd love to see it.
Well, we're going to do that for sure. The other set you sent us, I didn't really talk about. That was a December set. It's got a Santa Claus with a sack on his back of toys, and another Santa Claus standing there. I'm trying to see what he's doing. He looks like he's Santa Claus. He's got his hand up to his mouth. It looks like he might be smoking a bong. But no, I'm just kidding.
What the heck?
There's a prototype for everything.
No, I don't know what he's got his hand up to his face.
He's got his finger. He's got his fingers up.
Oh, he's saying shush. Okay, gotcha.
He snuck down the chimney. The kids are standing in front of him. He's like,
leave it to my dad.
Gotcha. Okay. And then over here, we got a penguin, and then we also and it's so realistic to this penguin. It's not like this is not like any birds I've ever seen. These birds you do are insane. And then he's got some Christmas wreaths in there. And then he's got a whole mess of deer. Are they deer or elk? What are they? They got a big rack. These things have huge racks.
Hold on. Look at one of the noses. One of the noses on them should be painted.
Oh, it is a reindeer.
They're reindeer.
Okay. Yeah. And this one here has... He lost an antler.
Did I dip Rudolph's nose in red? The only time I've ever painted a mini print.
Yes, it's red. Yep.
They're
and his antler fell off. I can glue that back on. What do you recommend for? Let's say an antler falls off. What do you recommend glue wise for putting them on?
CA.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I would use anyway. So.
Or happy to send you a new one.
What's that?
Or I'll send you a new one.
No, we're good. I can fix that. That's easy. It's just one antler. It's not a problem. So, but that is cool. These are really cool. Brett, you're getting some of these. We're going to split them up.
I can't wait.
You're going to paint some too.
I can't wait to hide a Santa in our city somewhere. Just like.
Yeah, me too.
As my dad would say, the bong Santa, but no, the shh Santa. I like that. What would be really cool is if we could hide him on like a rooftop with a shh, like he's near a chimney, like kind of like George Celios has that Batman hidden.
Yeah.
We could hide the Santa near one of the chimneys, and he's like shushing. I love it.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
If you go to MiniPrints, if you're on the website MiniPrints.ca, and you go to the objects, because I've also got someone wanted Adirondack Muskoka chairs or coffins, so I also do some objects. Although I don't want to do too many objects, because I never wanted to be the guy that did air compressors or battery boxes or locomotive horns, just because I think that's taken care of. Like, I don't want to redo or replicate what other people are doing.
Right.
The whole idea is to be different. So I'm not looking here to sort of reproduce all the other great stuff that's out there. There's going to be some overlap, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world that's ever done jack-o'-lanterns, but hopefully they're different enough. But if you look under the objects section, you'll see on the wreaths, I have a little scene I did of Santa standing on the back of the caboose. I threw a couple of wreaths on the caboose, and that's the Santa that I sent you. He's got his finger up going.
I love it.
So that's what he looks like.
So cool.
And you do these.
Covered a lot of ground tonight.
Well, and you do these for multiple scales. So we did a lot of talk about HO and what we love, but you also do these prints in S and O. Do you do other scales for some stuff too?
I do. So it started with HO, and then the S scale guys and the O scale guys came knocking. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing, as you know about a file, is once you've got it, it's scaling it up or down.
Yeah, it's easier.
So I'll offer every mini print is available in HO, S, O, and I've even had a couple guys say, "Can you print this out in 1:29? Can you print this out in 1:32?" So yes, the answer is pretty much anything. Most are available in N scale, but and I'm amazed. I've actually been able to get N scale out in the bald eagles and the seagulls, which I never thought I would.
Wow!
But not everything is N scalable, and that
no N scale crabs.
That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Oh.
And
the ones that are in HO, look like they're just so tiny. Oh, they're unreal.
The N scale guys want everything, and I empathize with them, and I've been able to get all my figures out in N scale, which I didn't think I could do. Most animals are available in N scale. I will do my darndest to try and get everything out in every scale, but there are just some things that we hit the limitations of the printer.
Yeah.
And my eyesight, to be honest. I've already got the maximum magnification. There's some things I just can't see.
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm the same age as you probably, and
I think we're very close.
I'm guessing. I'm 56, and all you have to do is say you're close. So
we're within 2 years. 2 years.
Okay, good. So and I noticed that I have pretty good eyesight. Don't get me wrong, and I do wear bifocals. And I've learned to work with them to be able to paint small detail. However, I'm noticing that I'm going to have to make a change on these things. And, and when you get super, super small like that, I can work with it for a little bit, but I got to take a break with my eyes after a good 20 minutes or so. I have to get up and just kind of walk away and then come back because I'll feel the strain a little bit, So and I think that happens with a lot of us modelers as we get older.
Oh, for sure.
But that's awesome.
I think that's why
everything's awesome.
You see a progression. I mean, all of us HO scale guys are going to have to go to O scale at some point.
No kidding. Well, then the other problem is that as you get older, you need less room in your home, or you may even downsize your home, but then you have to upsize your trains, so now you don't have the room for the O scale. But
we're all going to be building modules at one point.
There you go.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty cool idea. I've been thinking about that.
Most things, most of the, I'm just looking at the N scale selection, and I've got a whole section called the N scale gallery. I think pretty much everything is there. I mean, I don't think the N scale guys should be happy.
Right. Yeah. It's getting bigger for them now. It really is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's growing.
Yep. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and we're approaching 2 hours and about 2 hour show.
Yeah, that's
so a 2 hour and 15 minutes almost, about 10 minutes, but still, that's awesome. We loved your product. I'm so glad. Thank you for sending us a sample so we can talk about it tonight. And we're going to paint these up, and we're going to print them out, print them out, photo them, and send them out to you. And we'll show you those. And of course, you see, we always, anything we do, we pretty much put up on our Facebook and let others see it as well. But we will put a link up in the show notes for all our listeners to go to that show notes on there and on our website when you go check out the podcast, and look up Bernard. Has all the stuff on his mini prints. So please go there, check out his website. You will be just amazed at the super cool product that he has. And we're so grateful. Thank you for being on tonight and all the great tips.
It was a pleasure.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Well,
for us too, we had a good time.
I'm personally looking forward to trying some of these prints out that my dad has, and
we're gonna order some too. I just thought about that. I saw a bunch. You're gonna be getting an order real soon.
Awesome, and I'm gonna start working on the boat figures.
Oh, that's a great idea. Like I said, real quick, go to that. I didn't want to order prize or boat figures again because I've used them in a couple other places in our town. I think I had the same person walking around in 4 different places. So I took some work figures that had like hard hats, and I'm like, well, they looked like they could work on a boat. They were positioned like they could be easily painted up to work on a boat, no problem. Give them a black jacket or a yellow jacket and some blue pants or whatever, and give them galoshes. Paint their shoes up like black galoshes. Easy stuff, right? But the hard hat. I'm sitting there looking at the hard hat. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, back in the day, I could take it back to, and in today's modern fishing world, you may be able to use maybe they do wear a hard hat. Maybe OSHA requires that, or the American version of OSHA. I don't know what the Canadian version of OSHA is, sure. But maybe they require them to wear a hard hat on the boat. I don't know. I don't know the safety rules. However, I took a file and shaved the top of this guy's hard hat and kind of flattened it and made it look like a wheel cap or something from back in the 30s and 40s, a mechanic's cap or that kind of thing. Sure. And they all and it gave that look. And it actually looked like fishermen's hats, and just painted them black, and they look pretty good. But I don't want to have to do that. I want some fishermen that look like fishermen, but not the same ones all the time.
So can I make a plea to your listeners and also a request?
Sure.
If I'm working on right now, so most of what I'm doing now is stuff that people want. So I'm doing I'm working on right now a really cool set of guys. The guys that would shovel ice into the reefers in like the 30s and 40s?
Yeah.
Nobody makes those. So the guys with the big long poles and the ice guys. So I'm doing a whole set of guys for ice reefers. I'm doing a whole set of guys for a mining layout and a whole bunch of guys for a logging layout.
Oh, nice.
And these are all requests that have come in. So what I ask people to do, if you've got something you want, like boat figures, what I love are prototype photos. So email me. I'll give out my email on the air if I can. It's Bernard at MiniPrints.ca, and you guys can throw it in the show notes if you want. It's on the website too. If there's anything you want to see, no promises, but if it catches my fancy or, a lot of people want it, and I know that a lot of people will want the boat figures, send me some pictures of what you want to see in terms of the poses, the clothing, and that'll then be the inspiration. I've got a whole file folder just filled with, like photo references of, one day, no promises, but one day I'll get around to making that.
Cool.
That sounds like a deal.
That's great. So there you go, people. Yeah. If you want it and you're interested in it, and no promises, but send the email to Bernard and see if that's something that he may be interested in doing, that he thinks is worthwhile, and let's get those ideas out there, because hey, the imagination of this hobby is limited to what we can come up with, and these manufacturers such as Bernard, he needs to know what it is that you people want, so he can offer something that's gonna be beneficial to both your layout and him.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally. Yeah. And then we can do another show where I can tell you all the crazy requests I got.
We will definitely do another show.
I'm down with that
for sure. We have a lot of our guests that are always repeat, so we will definitely have you on again, and talk about more of your product and more of the mini prints, and I want to get into more of the art of the scenery and everything else. So these are topics we really ran out of time with tonight, but definitely we had a heck of a show tonight. Really
definitely
did.
Fantastic.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being on.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you for your time tonight, Bernard, and I hope our listeners enjoy this different type of manufacturer. And I know a lot of our listeners have already been purchasing from you some prints. I know a couple guys had the Sasquatch, a couple things like that, and like you said with the Halloween builds, you saw some work in there from you as well. So hopefully, if you are listening and you haven't checked out his stuff, you can head over to MiniPrints.ca and check out some of what the awesome things he has available. So thanks again, Bernard. It's a late night here. It's like 10 o'clock. So I gotta get up.
Too. He's in Toronto.
Oh yeah. You're the same time zone. I gotta get up and get my daughter ready for her last day of virtual school tomorrow. So, and then she's back in person finally. So, got a busy day ahead of us, but I do appreciate your time, and thanks for giving me some tips on my 3D printer as well.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
All righty.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.